Easy now. Papa got things making headlines.
Come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. I'ma have to cut you off, like right now. You see, I don't want to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try the marijuana. I was never you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they ain't finna change. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip. Yeah, you
Welcome to the Seahawks Man to Man podcast, powered by Blue Wire. Shout out to the new company. My name is Michael-Shawn and You guys know where to follow me on whatever that app is that Elon Musk is running these days. At Mike Dugar is my handle on there, Mikedugar. Thank you so much to everyone who listens and downloads, likes, subscribe, whatever on our YouTube channel. We appreciate all that YouTube love. Seahawks Man to Man is the name of the channel. That's man, the number 2 man. Thank you so much for listening on our post-game show or on our Standout Plays of the Week segment. We thank you so much. Chris, go ahead and talk to him.
What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Christopher Kidd. You can be sure to follow me on Twitter at CKIDD206, and that is CKid206. And how about that, Mike? Seahawks win in an ugly game against the Cardinals. They get it done, but it doesn't matter because the Packers handled business this season. Last year, they didn't handle business. The Seahawks got in. This year, they didn't get so lucky. And I can't say I'm not surprised. Me and you talked off wax. We both thought the Packers would win, and sure enough, they did. But just how the Seahawks played on Sunday against the Cardinals was an epitome of their entire season. They couldn't stop the run. They gave up a lot of explosives down the field. It just was a mess. Luckily, they pulled out a win, another tight one. And Pete Carroll, he's a big fan of those ugly, tight win games because his team obviously edged it out. And that is something he takes pride in. Can you win it in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter? They got it done again. But the same issues have plagued this team pretty much the whole season. The only thing that you can look up and give a thumbs up to is most likely the third down. They were pretty darn good on third down. They finished, if I'm not mistaken, around 50%, that's great. But they don't have that
50% of the nose, yes.
They don't have that signature win. They didn't get that all season. And what I mean by signature, you just kick somebody in the face and you keep stomping them out. It's not close. Kind of what the Ravens have done this season to teams, what the Dolphins have done to a team this season. The Seahawks don't have that type of win. All their wins, while they have 9 of them, there's not one signature. There's not one where you go, we played our best ball. And I think a lot of the players, if someone would ask, hey, what game would you say you played your best ball of the season? And you knew, okay, we turned the corner or that was our best game this season, easily, by far. Because I would dare to say that they don't have a game where they say we executed on both sides of the football perfectly or damn near perfection. Obviously, it's really hard to do because the team you're going up against, they don't want to lose either. But they don't have that win, Mike, where you can say, damn, offense and defense really showed up and the other team over there was inferior at every level. And against the team and the Cardinals, who, they beat the Eagles, but roster to roster, name to name, come on, man. The Seahawks, in my opinion, by far have the more talent. But when the talent doesn't execute, when the talent just doesn't play to their level, you get games where you win by a field goal and the kicker misses for the opposing team. You win despite having the running back, James Conner, go for over 100 yards, getting 1,000 yards in a season where he wasn't even healthy for the most part, right? So those are things that it's very concerning considering what they wanted to do this year. They wanted to revamp that defensive line. They wanted to be the Niners. They wanted to be the number 1 in division, and they fell far, far short of that as, again, they are eliminated from the playoffs. And now we have a lot of Twitter questions. People are wondering, well, what's next for this team? That's a great question. Do they fire Pete? What do they do? This team has been pretty much in a rut and mud for a minute now. And how long can you continue to be in this rut and not being the team that you're capable of being with Pete Carroll at the helm? And on Sunday against the Cardinals, it was just, damn, that's a stinger. That's going to suck. That flight home, that's not going to be fun.
Yeah, and to quantify some of what you were just saying, they gave up 13 explosives. That's the most they've given up all year, and only one of a few times they've given up double-digit explosives. Now, explosives are I don't know if we talked about it on the show a lot, but it's runs of 12 or more yards and passes of 16 or more. They were just
Yep.
against this Cardinals team, right? This is just Kyler Murray, James Conner, and some guys, right? So this was one of their worst performances in another must-have-it game. They gave up 10 explosives against Pittsburgh. So like it's getting worse in your must have it games, right? One of those explosives was on the final drive of the game. Michael Wilson catch over, I think that was Mike Jack. It was either Mike Jack or Trey. I don't want to get that wrong. I can go back and look. But the point is, and they also, Chris, like you said, they were getting ran all over today. Again, it was emphasis going back to tackling all this stuff, and they gave up a bazillion yards, and they finished the year. They're 31st. So what you guys will see probably a lot of the offseason at the Seahawks were 31st in rushing. Now, in terms of rushing yards per game, yes, they were 30th. What I like to do is I like to filter out all scrambles, take out kneel downs as well, and just look at designed run plays. And on those, they are 30th. So that is a number you'll hear me cite. You'll see me write that as well. And that number is 122 yards a game. That means when the team intended to run the ball against the Seahawks, they averaged 122 yards a game. That's 30th. I believe only let me see who's worse. The Broncos and the Cardinals are worse. Like, that is really, really coming off of last year. Yeah, so, yeah, Chris, the game itself was kind of, they won, so it's not like a total letdown. They finished with a winning record. I don't know if they talked about it on the broadcast, but they were showing the Bears score in the arena. Did they talk about that?
They did, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So even if you didn't want to know the score and you're on the Seahawks sideline, if you want to check your own score, you
Right
look
next
up
to it.
and see. Yeah, it was. If I was the Cardinals, I would have done the same thing. Like, I can't fault them. So that just kind of gives into the perspective a little bit. Although it was still interesting to kind of give you guys my little behind the scenes view. It was interesting hearing from guys about when they actually decided to look and when they learned. Like Gino, I think, said he didn't know that the Bears lost until right before their final drive on offense. Where some guys think, like Draymond Jones, I think he was looking the whole time. He was like, "Yo, I want to know,"
Right.
And he said, "I said, how'd you feel when you found out?" He was like, "I was just like, F it." At that point, I was just like, technique, that stuff don't matter. Let's just play hard for my homies and go make some plays. I was like, all right, cool. Who else? Leonard Williams said he didn't find out until right before the final kick that got missed, which was interesting. I think Daryl Taylor said he didn't know until they got in the locker room. So I was like, wait, so
Damn.
did you got when the kick went in? When the kick missed, did you think you guys were making the playoffs? And he was like, I didn't know what to think. I just know we won. I was like, okay, that's fair. Out of sight, out of mind until you get in there. So that was kind of interesting. And the other thing, from my perspective as someone who was there, Chris, the cigar thing was very interesting to see unfold in real time.
Yeah, man.
So
I saw your tweet. I said, "Excuse me."
Yeah, so I wasn't sure whether I was the first person to say something. I kind of tweeted it and just went to go work the room. But so as we're coming around the corner, when they let open the locker room, they're like, I'm walking next to one of the PR guys. And I'm like, yo, what is that smell? Because I'm thinking something burning, like I'm smelling smoke. And I hit the corner and I'm like, oh, somebody's got a cigar. I couldn't tell who the first person was. I thought it was just a one-off. And then I turned to my right and the whole DB room, kind of like that video Greg Bill posted, you can see all the DBs mostly have them. And I'm like, oh, they got cigars in here? What's up with that? And I kind of just let it rock. I just posted their victory cigars. Now, a little accountability on my part. I probably should not have called them victory cigars. Probably should have just said they were celebratory cigars. I don't know if there's enough difference there that it matters, but it felt like it in real time. Anyway, so I remember I'm like, this is a little weird. And it was especially weird because it was like the room felt divided. It was like none of the offensive guys I saw smoking any of them. It was mostly all the defensive side. And then I walked over to the offensive side, and the vibe was totally different. And I was interviewing Colby Parkinson, and then Julian Love came by with a box of cigars, like handing them to all the tight ends in that corner of the room. And I'm just like, guys are taking them out the box, like they're accepting them. But I was just like, this is a little funky. It just feels like it felt weird. Like I can understand why they were playing music and celebrating, right? But I was like, the cigar thing a little weird. At least just watching it unfold. How I felt about it was still being like hammered out in my brain, but I was just watching how other guys felt about it. And it was definitely not a consensus that this was a moment to celebrate. That's what stood out at first. So I didn't know who to ask about it until I was interviewing Colby and was like, yo, Colby, and then Julian Love came with the cigars. Later, I go up to Julian. I'm like, yo, you got a quick second? Because he had already talked, so I was trying to be polite. He's like, I got like time for like a couple. I'm in a rush. I said, cool, I'll keep it short. I asked him something. I said, what's up with the cigars? He was like, here, I'll read you exactly what he told me because I don't even want to misquote, bro, because this became a discrepancy unintentionally. He said, and I quote, he said, just to celebrate. A lot of players know every year is emotional. You know, there's ups and downs. This team will not be the same next year, and it never is. Just to celebrate your guys, your work all season. You know, that's all it was. End quote. That's what he told me. Straight from, the guy who was passing them out. So I kind of let that rock. Then I hear what Bobby had to say about it later in his thing. He was like, yeah, it's kind of young guys being young guys. I ain't smoking one of those. Basically what he said. And then I asked Tyler about it. In Tyler's post-game thing, it's on YouTube. You guys can look. I said, Tyler, you guys had cigars in there, and he cut me off. He was like, they had cigars. I didn't have a cigar. And then I was like, okay, well, what were those about? He kind of explained like, yeah, it's not for them celebrating this particular win. It's like guys are celebrating individual milestones where they finish the season healthy. Basically was like, it ain't just because we beat the Cardinals, right? It's essentially what Tyler gave a long-winded answer of saying, which is kind of what it is. But and then Quandre I saw later said something to the effect of what Bobby said. Hey, that's because kind of young guys doing their thing. Like, I'm not knocking them, but that's just kind of not how I'm getting down. I got bigger goals than whatever guys are celebrating for, right? So it was just watching them handle that was weird. Before I even could form an opinion on how I felt on it, I was just observing, doing my journalism thing, being like, so they win, they're 9-8, but they don't go to the playoffs because they lost the Steelers game and gave away control of their future. So that's already a weird thing to try to cover. And then I'm like, how are the emotions going to be with that? So I'm like, okay, let me really feel the locker room. As soon as I get in there and smoke, I'm like, whoa, it's a little funky. And yeah, and you know what it felt like? Independent of what Chris or I feel about the cigar thing, what stands out is guys not being on the same page about it. And that's the season in a nutshell, it feels like. Very emblematic of the season where just guys not in sync. Or you can even spread that to like this team was very inconsistent. Their post game wasn't even consistent. Some guys was like, yo, this is how I'm feeling. Some guys were like, this is how I'm feeling. And it felt very fitting in that regard. The whole day felt fitting. Chris, I was thinking about this the whole time. I was like, they don't control their fate, and they can't even control whether they know what the Bears score is because another team's going to show it. They don't have control of nothing today, other than whether they just go out and win. And then after, I'm like, yeah, them not being on the same page really did feel like the season in a nutshell. And not to say that guys were in there just hating each other all day or all year, but you guys, man, I really wish this was one of those days. I wish everybody was in there with me because it was just a weird vibe. There were guys who were not smoking the cigars, guys who ain't even, it was like, I ain't with that. Veterans visibly like, what are we doing? Like, this is cool and all. I saw the Reek's post on Instagram that implied that they were for Julian's kid, and Julian also responded to a tweet, said, yo, these are for my kid, chill out, basically to Greg Bell on Twitter. And that's fine. I can't tell Julian what they were for. But again, this is when I asked him about that, he didn't bring that up. I don't know why. It doesn't really matter the specifics of what they were for. The guys just weren't on the same page. And I really can't think of a better way to sum up the season because and it kind of speaks to a little bit of the fan base too, Chris, in the sense that there are some fans, we hear from them on the pod, we hear from them when we out in public or whatever, they're cool with, hey, we finished with a winning record. The season was fun. It was competitive. A couple games go here and there. Maybe we get where we want to be. We're right there, right? And I don't really fault anybody feeling that way. And then you get like people who are more like some of the veterans in there. It's like, dog, we're going to Cancun right now. That's whack. I came here to win a championship. We've been saying championship this whole time. This is unacceptable what just happened there this season. So it's like it was the difference between people who could contextualize the season versus like this celebrating like any individual moment. It was very fascinating to watch unfold, and you could see it in some of their press conferences too. And yeah, those even the final two drives were their season in a nutshell too. What's the offense do? Go down, game winning joint, which we've seen I think 6 game winning drives this year. 5
Might
by
have been
Geno,
yeah.
one by
One
Drew. I
by
think is
Drew.
what you got. You got the Lions, the Browns, the Titans, the Eagles, and I'm missing one. Oh, today, and there's one more in there that I can't remember right now. But the Commanders. So yeah, there's 6. 5 by Geno, 1 by Drew. So they can win close. But what happened after that? The defense damn near gave it away. Damn near gave it away. They didn't, obviously, because Matt Prater missed, but the defense did its part to then give away that lead, and it was just again their season. This was a relatively clutch team. 6 game winning drives is quite a bit, particularly you do them with multiple quarterbacks. It's pretty impressive. Geno, according to ESPN, just broke the record for most touchdown passes thrown, most go-ahead touchdown passes thrown in overtime or regulation. That's special. And yet,
Yeah.
Chris, you were mentioning that they don't have like a signature win, like that signature, like that blowout that you're kind of looking for. Chris, they won more games than they lost. However, on the season, they were outscored by 38 points. They were
That tells you
minus
everything.
38. That's only the second time a Pete Carroll team has been in the minus. I believe that 2010 team was like minus 97, I want to say. So that 2010 team was pretty bad, which makes sense. That was a young team. That was Pete's first year. All that makes sense of why that team in particular was getting its butt whooped. 14 years later, that should not be the case. I don't know where their point differential ranked per se, but it's pretty bad. I can pull it up here because you guys know on this show we're a big point differential team, and that really tells you how good or bad your squad is. Like when you have a positive point differential, like generally you're a decent team. You should at least score more points than your opponents, right? That's the name of the game. Chris, where would you guess that the Seahawks minus 38 point differential ranks in the NFL? If you had to just take
23rd.
Very good guess. It is 22nd. It is right behind the Steelers at minus 20, and then the Bears are minus 19, Colts minus 19, Bengals minus 18, Vikings minus 18, and those are the teams ahead of them that are negative. And the Raiders were plus 1, Phillies plus 5, Jags plus 6. Right. So for reference, the other two teams in the division, the Niners are plus 193, the Rams plus 27. Right. So there was a notice. It's not just like you were just a few games behind those teams. They were kicking butt, and you weren't. And you weren't.
Yeah.
The whole thing. The Seahawks were just consistently inconsistent from the final two, from the whole season to the final 2 drives, to even the post game, which felt I can't express enough how just strange that felt. I personally, I probably wouldn't have been down with the cigar thing, just because like the optics of it. I probably would have wanted to celebrate privately with the guys to avoid dealing with the optics. Because having a kid and celebrating, getting through the season healthy and Quandre tweets thank you God after every game, right? It's not because they won every game. It's because he made it through healthy, because he's broken bones before and is legitimately grateful to his God above that he made it through. That is fine. But like the optics of it were a little funky today. And it wasn't just like the fans felt that or some former players felt that. You could feel it within the room. It was a very strange scene to end a very strange season where they win their final game, finish with a winning record, don't make the playoffs. And it's like, yeah, this maybe. And then by the time I left the press box, I was like, maybe it's good that they turned up, because there's a lot of them cats probably not going to be in there with each other no more. And that's the case every year, as Julian said. He's correct. But you're going to get some position coaches that could probably going to be changed out. I would guess that I would be very surprised if both coordinators are back. We'll talk about that in our question segment, and probably all season or all off season. But yeah, a lot of players are going to get overhauled. A lot of free agents in there who probably won't be re-signed. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of change. So maybe they should have turned up. Maybe. Quandre and them in Detroit, and Matt Patricia's, I think it was Matt Patricia's first season there in 2018. They hated Matt Patricia so much that they popped bottles of champagne when the season ended, and they didn't go to the playoffs. So I get the celebrations at the end for whatever reason. But yeah, Chris, today it was a very odd scene to observe. Before I even could form an opinion on it, I was just looking around like, man, you could tell everyone's not rocking with this. Should everyone rock with it? I don't even know if it should be the case, but I can tell you that it was not.
No,
Hear from Mike, who was there. That was not a
no.
consensus celebratory moment, which really feels like it defeats the purpose of cigars. Because Chris, I don't know how many times you've been in a place where people broke out celebratory cigars, but if you have been, it usually is no ambiguity to it. Usually, it's pretty
No.
clear that they should be out. It's usually not like a debate on whether we should be celebrating at this moment.
I think you touched on something that's important within that discussion about the cigar gate, as everyone's calling it. I think, for one,
Cigar game is hilarious, by the way.
it shows the divide with this team. It really does. You mentioned veterans. Oh, that's the young guys. Tyler Lockett stating, not me, them. That tells you everything you need to know about this Seahawks roster. Whether you are an observer, Seahawks fan, a fan of this show, a fan of other shows, the one thing that stood out to me is that they're not on the same page. Your leader, Bobby Wagner, he is clearly upset. I can see it written on his face. I don't have to be in the locker room to know that Bobby's pissed. Bobby wants to come back to Seattle to do one thing and one thing only, and that's get a ring on his finger. And to not make the postseason, and then your teammates are celebrating the birth of Julian Love's son. Fact check, let's see. Oh, he was born 2 weeks ago against Tennessee. Why couldn't you guys do that after that game that you actually won, and it still mattered at that point in time? Your season wasn't, quote unquote, on the line as it was on Sunday against the Cardinals. That I would have been, okay, I get it. You win the game. You just had your son. Congratulations. That's fire. That's dope. But to do it 2 weeks later doesn't even make sense. You're not going anywhere. You're going to Cancun. It didn't add up. And it's crazy that some players felt that, it was, I guess I can't say I understand. I hear the thought process of, bro, we played 17 weeks of tackle football, laying our bodies on the line, but there's a time and place to do it. You could have waited until you guys were on vacation and then drop it with the DB room or whatever the case may be. That's not a great look. It's championship culture, right? Imagine, Mike, you're a free agent and everybody hyped up the Seahawks culture and Pete Carroll, and you're, the game just ended. You're scrolling through Twitter. You're like, man, I might want to go to Seattle. And you see that picture and you see that photo of a team that just lost, by the way.
They won the game.
They won the game, but they're not going to the playoffs because the Packers handle business.
Right.
How do you feel as someone that's saying, man, I might go to Seattle? I guarantee your agent's like, hey, there's clearly something going on there. Seattle's off the list, bro. Maybe the Rams. Because it's funny. I don't know if any of our listeners pay attention to what the Rams coverage is going on, what Jordan Marguerite does with the Athletic. Phenomenal coverage. We've had her on our show 1,000 times. She's come on a bunch to talk about as we preview matchups with the Rams. But if you guys remember, and if not, I'm going to put you on game. Coming into this season, Matt Stafford was out the loop. And what I mean by that is he didn't know how to interact with the new guys. Because this Rams team that's in the playoffs, brand new roster. Aaron Donald, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, those are three names you probably know. Everyone else, brand new. And you know what the problem was? Stafford didn't know how to connect with the new dudes. Jordan talked about it in one of her stories that it was just awkward, Matt Stafford's wife had some comments about not being able to connect with the team, and the players heard about it, so now there's even more disconnect. But you know what they figured out? They figured it out. Stafford was the team leader. Kupp stepped in, did his thing, and guess who's in the playoffs? A team that didn't have it figured out coming into the season, but now when you look at it, the Rams are in. They finished 10-7, and the Seahawks are out at 9-8. The Seahawks did not figure it out. I thought the Seahawks would be second in the division, and they'd finish 10-7, and the Rams would be 8-9 or 9-8. That's what I predicted, but those two games against the Rams really changed the outcome of this entire season. Mike has touched on this a bunch in regards to winning those NFC games is key. It's huge, and they did not accomplish that on a consistent basis, especially against the Rams, for whatever reason. So the whole cigar thing, it's a tough look. It's really hard to say, I get why they did it, because part of me does understand, but then part of me is saying, but why couldn't you wait? Why was it necessary to be in that locker room knowing that your season is over to do that? To me, that just, it shows that the big leaders, Bobby, Quandre, they're kind of like, hey, man, what more can we do? We try to lead by example, using our words, using our play. And then for the season to end the way it did, and some of our teammates to act as if it's no biggie. We just played a hell of a season. Everybody's healthy for the most part, which I have no problem with. But it's the optics, as you pointed out, Mike. It's looking at it and saying, yeah, but y'all are not even in the playoffs. For example, the Raiders. I completely understand why they pop cigars every time they win. I get it. That team has been through hell the last 3 seasons. And you know what? They kept clawing and fighting, and they won, I think, 3 straight, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe not 3 straight, but they won some games with an interim coach that just was given the team, and they made magic out of that. Those guys believed in that coach. They played for something. Yeah, their season's over, but the Seahawks are not the Raiders. The Seahawks have a goal of winning a Super Bowl. That's what the talk was. Beating the Niners and being the number 1 seed and hosting. Not being fringe and hoping that, damn, if the Packers lose, we're in, and you never know what happens. We can go to Dallas and get a dub. We can go to Detroit and get a dub. But that just shows the difference between the Niners, Rams, and Seahawks, which is crazy, especially when they made all these moves, when they decided to bring back Jay Reed. Think about they didn't have Leonard Williams. Just for a second, think about Leonard Williams' impact, and if he's not on this roster, I don't know if the Seahawks won 7 games, Mike. And that's just me being real with you. Because there are plays where Leonard makes himself known, and I get why the Seahawks went and got him. They needed Leonard. And the scary part is, based on what he saw in that locker room, would you guys be confident in him coming back? This winning culture, and they're out, and you got teammates over there, hey, man, we made it out, baby. You know, I'm like, what? Yeah, bro. I might go to the Rams next year. I'm going to team up with Aaron Donald because you know what they're doing? They're strapping up their chin straps for another week with an opportunity to make the NFC Championship, to go up against the Niners. That's what they're doing. That's all I got.
For what it's worth, I did talk to Leonard after the game. He said he wanted to come back. You know, for what it's worth. Like to hear, like the city, likes the culture. We'll see. A lot of guys, there was no one. So I do want to throw that out there. Just be fair to Leonard. I don't think there was anyone I talked to who wasn't like gung ho about coming back.
Let me ask you this though, Mike. Would someone really come up to you after a game and be like, yeah, bro, I'm out? And then if they did, how comfortable would you be willing to say, I'm going to share that tonight? Because that's the disconnect between this team. Because I know you build relationship with these dudes, and sometimes, they might tell you stuff off wax, and you just like, I'm not going to ever say it again. Like, it's just between you and that player. Whereas in this scenario, if he was like, nah, bro, I'm done. How would that then change this dynamic of, oh, Leonard Williams, the Seahawks need him. He is a person that if his behind is not on the Seahawks roster, they have a hole.
That's a good question. So there is a way for me to sniff out who is trying to tell me something without saying it.
And that didn't come off that way.
Yeah, there were a couple guys who. Let's try to think of who's a good example in the past. Here we go. Here's one. Puna last year. Remember in locker room clean out day. I'm like, yo, what's up? What you think about the season? He's like, yeah, it wasn't what we wanted, blah, blah. Wish you were better. Yo, you're a free agent. He's like, how you feel about that? He's like, kind of is what it is. I'm like, yo, do you want to come back? He's like, yeah, we'll see what happens. Those type of answers usually are I'm telling you that I'm not really tripping off whether I come back or not without saying it out front. Because usually those are the ones I usually get. Like, yeah, I'm a free agent. It is what it is. We'll see what happens. I'll let my agent handle that. I'm just going to control what I can control. Those answers, those are the guys who usually not about that. And I did get 2 of those today. I won't name the guys just in case they come back. But yeah, I did get a couple of those today where it was like one guy I talked to. I asked him, you want to be back? And he was like, yeah. He was like, I really like Seattle. I got nothing good to say about Seattle. We'll see what happens down the line. It was not a direct quote, but that was the gist of what he said. After I turned my recorder off, he was like, how was that? Was that politically correct enough? I was like, yeah, you're good. Yeah, that works. I won't say what guy that was, but so those are the type of answers. That's a good question you asked, because I remember when it was there was a debate of whether Pete had lost the locker room, and I remember writing that no, guys said they haven't, and then some people were fairly like, well, Mike, how they're not going to tell you that he lost the locker room, right? Of course not.
True.
Now, and that's fair. I understand that. I have figured out kind of that's one of the ways. The locker room went a little tricky, but free agency, I can usually parse through who's like, yeah, I'd love to be, I want to be back. Like, this is my home, blah, blah, blah. Like Bobby. Bobby was pretty unequivocally like, yo, I want to, what I'm saying? I want to be back here. Like, that's what he wants. It's the only thing he wants. Daryl Taylor was like that as well. He was a guy who was like, yo, I want to be back here. I love Seattle. This is what I want to be. He's a restricted free agent, but you guys get the point. So that's a good question, Chris. I'm glad you asked that, because there are ways to determine who's kind of like, I really want to be here versus, or like, so in the past I've had guys be like, they'll just repeat, yeah, it is what it is. We'll see.
They gone.
It is what it is. Yeah. I've never had a guy say that and he came back. Let me tell you that. That's a 100% track record right there. I don't think I got any of those today. So, but yeah, I can parse out who's bought in and who's not. That's a good question, and probably something like that probably gonna come up later in the offseason too. So yeah, just a weird locker room scene, guys. I'm with Chris. It was very, very bad optics. But for me, it really was just the fact that everyone was not on the same page about it, because that's really hardly ever the case with bottles of champagne or cigars or whatever. People are usually like, there's a consensus, and for there not to be a consensus today was so weird. We can get into the questions now too, but
one quick one for
stood
you.
out. It stood out so much.
Why do you think they waited 2 weeks?
Well, Julian said on Twitter, he was like, I wanted to wait till the end of the season. Which I mean, that's so
let me throw this into the atmosphere. So if they lose, they still doing it?
I don't know. I would have asked that if Julian had mentioned that. You know what I'm saying? Like, the reason I never followed up is because the answer he gave me sufficed. He was like, we are celebrating in basically our final moment together. So I was
that
like,
would be very wild.
If he had mentioned the kid and mentioned that, hey, I wanted to wait till the end of the season, I then would have been like, so what would you have done if you guys lost? That would have been my first response. But I had no reason to do that because he didn't mention that. So it was that was very weird too. Everything was weird, and then no one else mentioned his kid. Like Bobby didn't, Tyler didn't, Pete didn't, Quandre didn't. Yeah, no one really mentioned that was the reason. Like,
because they definitely would have. Oh yeah, bro, they were celebrating the birth of his child. I mean, hell, we got the win. So yeah.
Because then at that point it would have been a consensus. Because when cigars and champagnes, they didn't have champagne today, but you guys get what I'm saying. When those type of things come out, usually it is very clear why they are, and there's no ambiguity about the situation. So yeah, very, 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 very odd. It just felt odd. If this was an odd season, it's going to be an odd off season. So we're staying on the oddity track, odd future. Like it's very, very strange. It's hard to put into words. I guess we just did for a long time, but even now I'm still like, what did I just witness today in Arizona? Odd.
I'm 1,000% with you, man. But let's not waste no more time. Let's get into Twitter questions. We got quite a few. I'll start with a DM I received from Bryce Coots. Based off the question that was asked at the press conference for Pete and his response to the question about coming back, it's simple. Is Pete back next season, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I can't guarantee that. I'm not in charge. But I would think so. I mean, if you guys notice, too, here's some other tea leaves that I've been kind of paying attention to, right? So you look at all the people whose kind of job it's been this year, like in the NFL insider world, to kind of parse through who's on the hot seat, blah, blah, blah. Where have we been getting reports on? The Jets, the Falcons, who by the time we're recording this have already fired their coach. The Bills owner had to basically come out and endorse. The Falcons owner had to, he's been speaking. The Jets owner came out. The Chargers, Raiders, Panthers, like basically you guys get what I'm saying here. The people who were on the hot seat, like Patriots is the other one I was thinking of. The reporting has kind of already been done and out there, and it's been followed all this like last month. And if you notice, there really hasn't been anything about the Seahawks, and that's pretty telling. Even I think today before the game, it was like NFL Network had like a rundown of like the coaching carousel, and the Seattle section was like, oh, they're going to talk about it at the end of the season. Well, duh, I could have told you that. Yeah, what's that little blurb gonna do? They ain't telling nothing
Right.
because it really wasn't much to tell. So, yeah, I would anticipate Pete being back. Like if I had to set Vegas odds on it, which there probably are Vegas odds on it. If I had to set them myself, though, I would put Pete being back at like minus 900, and then Pete not being back at like plus, way plus, like plus 1200 or something wild like that.
This next one comes from a DM, and you sent it to me, but this question basically is asking any thoughts on if they can make a change defensively, scheme wise, and who outside the building would be a desirable candidate if they do make a change with the scheme and or with Pete.
Yeah, this is a good question. I don't know candidate wise. I'd have to really dive into it, and we're kind of fresh at the end of the season, because I feel like all the people I would want. I'd have to really dive into that to give you guys a list. If they do make a change, though, I will have a list of candidates. I will say broadly, because the goal is to get better up front, at least in my opinion, I would probably take someone's D line coach because you're not going to be able to take someone's coordinator, probably, at least not a coordinator worth a damn, probably not. I mean, maybe in Carolina, I think their defense is good, but their team is not. So maybe I don't know who their DC is over there, but like that's an example. But generally speaking, I would probably just go if they are going to move on, I would probably grab someone's D line coach, maybe someone in the AFC North because all of their D lines are pretty solid. And they play hard and they get the most out of their guys if they're going to make a change. Because when I look at this team defensively, it really is like I need to see more up front. Chris, they haven't drafted a defensive lineman to make a Pro Bowl, I think ever. It's got to be ever, right? Because Cliff
Yeah,
wasn't
all
drafted.
their
Mike B
big
wasn't
moves,
drafted.
all their Pro Bowlers for the most part have been signings, trades, like dudes that they brought
Yeah.
in for a season. It hasn't been, we developed some guy or we drafted, for example, Jalen Carter and he became a Pro Bowler. Obviously, that's not the case in this scenario, but that would be an example. They drafted Devin Witherspoon, he's a Pro Bowler, but he's not on the D line. But continue, Mike. So I think you're right.
Yeah. I don't think they've drafted a defensive. I think Frank didn't make it when he had the 13 sacks that year, but he would probably be the best, the closest thing as someone they've drafted who was like of that caliber because he made 3 right after that. But the point is, yeah, it's got to be up front, man. So like the changes I would, even if you keep everybody, that has to be the focus. Like it just has to be. You have to get better up front, particularly pass rushers on the edge. Get edge guys. That position group should not have performed the way it did just because they lost Chenna. Chenna's a great player. That's not an excuse to lose that dude and fall off as a unit the way they. It's inexcusable stuff. So yeah, I think if that means changing a coach out, changing several coaches out, and do whatever you got to do. If that means changes out several players as well, do whatever you got to do. But if you're on defense, when they really sit back and watch, that's going to be the conclusion they come to as well. Is like on the edge, we need to have killers up there getting to the quarterback, and they just did not have it this year. Even though they were high in sacks, they probably finished the year top 10 in sacks. You didn't feel it. You know what I'm saying? You didn't come into the game feeling like, the pass rush is going to dominate today. And they got to fix that.
All right, Mike, we're going to use the pie scenario here. So get that pie in your brain set and ready. We got head coach Pete Carroll, defensive coordinator Clint Hurt, and offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. Individually, what are the percentages of these guys being back?
All 3 of them being back? Like, what's the percentage that they all come back?
Yep. So go through Pete, DC, Clint, and then obviously Shane. Give us a pie percentage-wise.
Okay, that's a good one. So I'll say, I think Pete's back. I think that's like 90 something. That's pretty high. Who was the other one? Was that you said Shane or is that John?
No, so yeah, it's Shane, OC, and then Clint Hurt, DC. So percentage on these guys, those 2 dudes returning as well within that pie.
I'm like 50% on Shane, and I would probably say a little less confident. I'd probably say like 30. I'd say like 30 on Clint. I just feel like it's gonna be hard to justify the retention of the DC when the numbers are that bad. I think when you're the OC, it's a little easier because their numbers on offense aren't bad. Like but then again, that's why I'm at 50-50. Neither were shotties, right?
And
And
he
so
got
you can find a reason to get rid of a guy if you want to. And in that case,
yes.
it was the difference in philosophy or whatever the hell it was. So you can do that. Like I'm looking at some offensive numbers right now. The Seahawks finished the season 12th in points per drive, which is better than points per game I like to use because all these points per game stuff will count defensive scores and punt returns and stuff like that. So I want to take those out of the sample. And the Seahawks were 10th in EPA per play. So like they were an above average offense. They could score. They were largely efficient. And I could still justify it because their situational stuff was so bad. But that's why it's 50-50. Whereas they had one of the worst defenses in the league back-to-back years with a pretty talented offense. It's pretty easy to, if I'm Pete, to sit back and like, all right, what change should I make that be the one that I make?
This next one comes from Nathan, and he keeps it real simple, Mike. Who has to go? Shane, the offensive coordinator, or Clint, the Seahawks defensive coordinator?
Yeah, like I said, it's much harder to make the case for the latter, just because of the numbers are so bad. And it doesn't really feel, in both cases, here it is, a little insidery nugget. It certainly feels like in both cases there are players who are not totally bought in or not sold on the guy calling the plays. I felt that for most of the season on both sides of the ball. Felt it a lot of the season on defense for sure. And when that's the case, you can justify getting rid of whoever you want. So that would be that. But I say that to say that would probably be more of my argument for Shane. Like if you're just like, all right, Shane, the numbers are fine, but we feel like guys are not really totally bought in on what you got cooking over there. So you got to go. Totally justifiable. I wouldn't be mad at that. Now, if you're just like, we're gonna get those guys out of here, because Gino's pretty bought in on Shane. So it's like, as long as it's not Gino, we can get the rest of them cats out of here. We can get you build the thing you want, get you some different linemen. Hopefully our linemen stay healthy, although who knows what's up with Abe's knee. Like there's a few ways that could go. But I feel like because the numbers were still good, like the raw numbers, you could justify that. However, I would probably want a new voice in there because for me, the situational stuff really sticks with me, particularly because, and this is for both coordinators, they had things they wanted to emphasize this season. There were a lot of them, but in particular for on offense, it was let's be better situationally. Red zone, third down. I didn't even check those numbers before we came on. So you guys are about to see me in real time peep what they finished in both of those categories. Let's look on offense. Third down numbers, 23rd, 26%. That's awful. What are they on in the red zone? Red zone efficiency, 25th. You can fire any coach you want who posts those numbers. But when you come into a season wanting those to be better, particularly the third down one, actually they both matter. Yeah, I would be fine either way. And then on the defensive side, the numbers are bad, but particularly bad against the run again, despite that being an emphasis. And it feels like last year you could say, all right, you had a bunch of young dudes, you got a bunch of injuries. He wasn't as talented as maybe you should be. Let's invest. Cool. You did that. You got Jay Reed back. You swapped out Cody Barton for Bobby Wagner. You got a healthier Trey Brown, which we saw that definitely mattered in some games. You got a growth out of Boye, added Leonard, brought Jay Reed back, got Julian Love, got a healthy Jamal for really some games at least. Like you got the pieces, and you added Spoon. Like so, you got more talent than last year, and nothing changed. That's very hard to argue against, right? Like Clint's a friend of the show. That's just hard to argue against. Like when you go in the room and you say, hey, now I don't have all the info that someone like he would have going in there to argue maybe, but still based on what we have, man, what we know, it's just hard to justify either one. coming back, which pains me to say, but you just can't. I feel like it's just you're doing a disservice to the guys that have to make the plays if you don't change something. And here's what I would say. One last thing on that: if you're like, all right, cool, we keeping both coordinators and Pete. If you do that, everyone under them probably has to go because there's just something not right with the run game, with the pass game, with the O line, with the D line, with the backers, with the DBs. There's too much inconsistency and regression from guys we know are talented and guys are not being maximized. So, like I said, you can make an argument for either one. I'm kind of dancing around my answer here, but if you are going to keep them, everyone below them, see it. Like you have to change all that out. You have to. I feel like you can't keep this the same and expect it to get better.
This next one comes from D'Artagnan. Defense, desperate need of a blue chip talent. If you are John Schneider, what moves are you making this offseason to get that blue chip player?
I'm probably overpaying for the best edge rusher on the board. I don't know who that is. I apologize for not knowing who that is. But I just feel like whoever it is, whoever's available via trade, I just feel like you got to go get them. You have to go get them. I would prefer, like stylistically, I would prefer like a power guy, like a guy who can just run through cats. Again, I don't know who exactly that would be. I'm kind of loosely looking at like a free agent list right now, and it's pretty underwhelming. It's guys like Marcus Davenport and Randy Gregory on here. Zadarius Smith. Oh, he's 31 though. Yeah, Chase Young, underwhelming. Yeah, it's actually not great. So probably not the best options, but I feel like that's what you have to do. You have to go into a season. Did Boye get double-digit sacks? He didn't get it, right? Boye Mafia didn't get double-digit sacks, I don't think. So that means they haven't had a guy with double-digit sacks since Frank in 2018. Come on, dog. What are we doing? You just can't. That will be it. Preferably you draft a guy, but you have to have that. Now, what I could see is them bringing back D Hall, anticipating that he makes a jump like Boye made from year 1 to year 2, bringing back Boye, who had 9 sacks, getting back a healthy Chenna, who's like probably could be a double-digit sack guy, and then using their first pick on an edge rusher. So then you got those 4 mixed, they bring back Leonard. Like I could see it, but either way, whoever that guy is who's available, that blue chip pass rusher, that's what it's got to be, I think. I don't think it can be any position but that. If you are going to overpay, and I'm cool with overpaying in this scenario, if you bring everybody back, Pete and John, I mean, because you can't just rely on a rookie. You have to go get someone who's done it too. So, yeah, I think you have to overpay for an edge rusher.
All right. This next one comes from Bam Season. Where does this team go from here?
Ooh, wow. Josh Allen from the Jaguars is available. Maybe that's the guy. I like him. He's really, really good. Oh, Brian Burns? Yeah. I was looking at the wrong list. Yeah. These are some guys. Sorry, I just wanted to I wasn't comfortable with the answer that I gave there. Now I am. Yeah. Go overpay for Brian Burns. There's your answer. Right there. Or Josh Allen. Either one of them.
That works.
Don't matter which one. Yep. Overpay for them. Give them whatever they want. Add void years. Make it happen. But to the question you just asked, where do they go from here? Yeah, I think there has to be drastic change. Like it has to be drastic. Like I said, I don't think Pete's gone. So which means I don't think John is either. And you can defend both of those moves, but I feel like everything else has to. It can't be the same, man. Like you can't roll through. Let's see how many. There's 2 coordinators and a bunch of position coaches under them, right? Running backs, run game coordinator, O-line, pass game coordinator, receivers coach, tight ends coach, linebackers, edge guys, D-line, safeties, corners, DBs. It's all these guys. I would say you probably got to change out about 80% of that staff. 80. I'd probably say 80%. I'm not even really picky on who the 20 is that stays. Yeah, I'm not. Don't really care. But I feel like that's at the minimum. However many guys there are of all the position between position coaches, special analysts to the whoever's, and all that stuff. If there's 12 of them, whatever 80% of that is, it's got to go. 'Cause I just the reason why I say that is because of the inconsistency we saw, the lack of discipline that we saw, and the regression on the parts of players that we know are better than them. Like some of that's probably got to do with those players, but it just feels like guys were their eyes weren't good, technique not there, weren't totally bought into what was going on. The guy responsible for teaching them, like it didn't. I didn't feel it. I didn't feel like guys believed in the people who were giving them the game every day. I just really didn't. And I could probably go do some digging and get some hard answers on that. But right now, I just feel really confident in just going on a hunch, saying, "Yeah, man, I don't feel like this group of guys was bought into those dudes." And I can't really specify which position coaches or which coordinators weren't relaying, but it just feels like if you don't change over 80 or 90% of all those coordinators and position coaches, you're not going to get a better result in 2024. You're just not.
This next one comes from Tyler Purcell. What do you think would ultimately be the quickest way to get this Seahawks team to the Super Bowl?
Is to dedicate all the resources to the front seven and the offensive line. I feel like because every team is built a certain way where you're light at one position, like resource allocation and money. Like for example, the Seahawks this year, I think are spending a ton on receivers. They're like top 5 in receiver spending. They're like number 32 in O-line spending, right? Just because it's a balance. You know, it's how it works. Same thing on defense. Like they're not spending anything on corners, but they're spending a gazillion dollars on safeties, right? So, and they're not spending much on edge guys, probably about the middle of the pack. Nor are they spending a ton on linebackers, right? So it balances out, right? I feel like that shift has to change in terms of draft allocation. Whatever money you do free up, whether because you release a guy or trade a guy, that has to be used on the trenches. Trenches. And Jordan Brooks. Trenches, front 7, front 5. There you go. Front 7, front 5. I feel like it has to be that. It has to be. It has to be very competitive too. Like that's the goal. And then we can get into free agent guys and draft stuff later down the road. But like just fresh off still in my hotel in Arizona, that has to be it. Because I feel like they can get by with the other stuff, particularly if you got DK, Jax, Tyler, and then all your corners are pretty relatively cheap, so you can bring all those guys back. So you don't need to spend any new money there. It all needs to go front 7, and even if you bring back Quandre and Julian, and if you're deciding to punt on the Jamal contract, well, there you go. You're not spending nearly as much on safeties anymore, so you can dedicate front 7, front 5. That's gotta be the motto. It's like I almost want to get a chant going, like in what's the Wolf of Wall Street? I want to be like that. Front 7, front 5. Front 7, front 5. Yeah, like I feel like that's what it's got to be. Nothing else. I feel like if their moves are only in those groups, the offseason is like if I'm talking draft 2, draft, trade, free agency. If they only address them spots, I feel like they did the right thing.
Well, I know you said we should wait for the draft stuff, but this is real simple. Seahawks are picking 16th in the 2024 draft. They don't trade back. What position would you draft round 1? And this one comes from Danny at DBHawks19.
Yeah, I've been I forget which Florida State game I was watching, but I remember watching it and thinking, why does everyone think the best player is their quarterback? I was like, the best player I think people thought the best player was that receiver. I think his name's Keon Coleman, which he is cold. But when I was watching them, it was a game. It was before Jordan Travis broke his leg for sure, because Jordan was in this game I was watching. I was thinking, yo, I think his last name is Verse. Like Florida State, I think it's like Jared Verse or something. Go get that dude. If you go get a guy like that. Go get the dude from Bama. I think his name's Dallas Turner. Like I will be in play for the best edge rusher on the board if you can. Don't reach, because if there's a good tackle there, or a good defensive tackle or offensive tackle, you can take them too. If there's a great guard or a great center, take them too. Like, I'm fine with taking the whole front seven and front five thing. That's our theme now. But when I'm looking at the draft, the guys I've been kind of paying attention to in some of these mocks and when I watch college games are, where's the edge rushers? Because it kind of looks like it could be really offensive heavy in this top 10. So that's good for Seattle. That means you could get the second or third defensive player off the board, maybe. It means you could get the best. You can get the third best edge rusher or something. When's the last time the Seahawks had the third best edge rusher in the class, right? So, yeah, I think that's where you should start. Start with the edge, and then work your way backwards through your most important positions, which I would say are then edge, interior D-line, O-line. Focus there. If you don't got nothing you like there, trade back, get more picks, and then go from there.
This next one comes from Chateau. I hope I'm saying that right, but if not, my apologies.
Is it Chateau?
Shatauyu.
Oh, no, never mind. No.
What sorts of possibilities are there with Pete Carroll's contract situation? Do you know what ownership is thinking about that regarding extension or maybe picking up a team option? What's that going on? What's going on there?
Yeah, in the NFL Network report, they I forget who was in charge of the report, but they did mention that Pete's under the books for next year, and then there's an option for 2025 that can be exercised. It just says can be exercised, so it doesn't make clear whether that's Pete or whether that's ownership. I would imagine that's ownership, but I legitimately don't know. Either way, I would guess that if I had to just take a stab in the dark here, Sunday night after the game, that they run it back next season with Pete and then kind of go from there. That would be my guess. I don't think you need to pick up the extension necessarily. I don't know what ownership is thinking, and I'd be really honest with you guys. I don't think anybody knows what ownership is thinking. But I say that to add, if I did know, I would have to have done something like took a blood oath to the point where I couldn't tell you guys if I did know. I couldn't, because I'm serious. The back channel conversations that I would have had to have to get the insight on how Jody Allen and Burt Cold are thinking, I'd be sworn to secrecy anyway, so I wouldn't be able to tell you even if I did know. I'm telling you now that I don't, but if I did, I would lie. I would have to. I would tell Chris off the record, and then we would record, and I would lie because I just can't. It's just so hard to get that information. But that would be my guess at running it back with Pete, because you can see how Pete's culture can get you competitive, and when you stay consistently competitive, you can get a few things to break your way and get to where you want to be. Is that going to happen? I don't know, but you can see an ownership group talking themselves into that. Whereas there's a teardown, it's much scarier. This is why I think Pete's back next year, and then after next year is really the evaluation of do we want to keep doing this? Because that'll be what, 15 years? 15 years, yeah, and that'll be a full 10 since they made the MC title game. Yeah, it's a long time. It's a long time removed from getting where you want to be. So that would be my guess of how things go.
This next one comes from Chris Leeper at Rosebug_22. If this team is running back with Pete, is there any reason to be optimistic for next season?
Right now, no. But there could be some moves that inspire. You could go find a defensive coordinator. You could make a big splash. I mean, because the reality is that everything changes so much year to year. So many new teams make the playoffs. There's injuries. There's players that just burst on the scene. There's coordinators that come on and get hot. There's guys out there that can get Seattle to where it wants to be. It's just a matter of getting them all here at the same time and everyone staying healthy and picking the right coordinators and position coaches and all of that stuff. That all has to happen together.
Yeah.
So but right now, if you're not optimistic about the Seahawks and you're a Seahawks fan, who could blame you? Who could blame you? Look how the season ended. Not just the fact that you didn't make the playoffs, but look, you got a locker room that couldn't even agree on how to feel. And in years past, it felt like it was far more of a consensus. Even last year, it was yeah, this sucked, but we got a bright future, right? That was generally a consensus that I could feel in that room. 2020, it was yo, we drastic. I wasn't in the locker room with COVID year, but it was for sure like we underperformed and this sucked. 2021, I can't remember if we were in the locker room at that time, but that was for sure something got to give around here because what's going on with the quarterback and the coach is toxic. And what do you know, they traded the quarterback, right? Even in 2017, when that was my first year covering, they didn't make the playoffs. That was a similar situation. They needed to win, and they needed someone else to lose. Think like the Falcons or something. It didn't happen. But in that locker room, it was like, this is unacceptable. Change is gonna have to come. It's gonna have to come. You could feel it. There was no ambiguity about the situation, right? And I guess J Love's baby is maybe a unique variable in that, but still, the point is, usually there's some uniformity about the finality of the season, and there was not that. Even in 2019, there was some of that too, like uniformity. I'm using a lot of big words today. I'm proud of myself. So, if you're not optimistic right now, I can't talk you into it because this is not an optimistic situation. You're getting past the Rams thing is really what makes it super frustrating, Chris, to be honest, because the Rams won the Super Bowl, tore their thing down, and then got right back past the Seahawks.
Crazy.
That is really disheartening in your own division to have that happen. It really is. And the Rams did it. The Rams didn't even have a first round pick this year.
No,
they didn't. It belonged to Detroit.
Their draft picks. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they were able to do a full teardown, ship off Jalen Ramsey, cut Bobby, get rid of some other dudes, roll out there with Matt Stafford, Aaron Donald, and a bunch of children. And they went out there and won 10 games. Right. And then we're a much better team this year than the Seahawks. And that's really tough to see because that should not have been the case. The Seahawks should have been they should have been better than the Rams this season based on the talent, the continuity, and instead the Rams were way, way, way better. And this is 1 year after just being a complete mess. So, yeah, if you're not optimistic, I can't talk you into it because right now there's not a ton of room for optimism unless you're Pete. He's probably the only optimistic person right now.
This next one comes from @Aaron Ahmad BC. Reflecting on the past 2 Seahawks seasons, what have fans learned about this team?
That's a good question. I would say I can't tell y'all what y'all have learned, but I feel like I can tell you what is illustrated. It's something we've talked about on here. We talked about it after last year's Niners loss. You need the players, man. I know we talked a little bit about coaches and stuff too. Rightfully so, because I think, like I said, you got to overhaul that whole thing. 80% is the magic number. I'm pulling that out of my head, but that's the magic number to me. And it's the players, man. It really is. You need the blue chip talent. Like I think I've alluded to on the podcast before, I've been working on this project that requires me to go back and watch a lot of old Legion of Boom era games. Dog, it's a totally different feel. It's not just because of the Legion of Boom per se. It's because you could feel the talent. You could feel that. And you're just not feeling that right now. It's not. You're not feeling it. And particularly on offense, you're not feeling an identity either. That's the other thing that we've learned. It's been really hard for a Pete Carroll team to play Pete Carroll ball on offense. Like some of the numbers have been good, but it doesn't feel right. And that I think is that's probably what Pete Carroll does not like about this season. By the time you guys hear this, Pete will have probably already spoken on the radio and he'll already spoken to the media. But for me, that's what stands on offense. It doesn't have that Pete Carroll feel to it. Like, yeah, you run the ball here and there, but that's not what you do. You know what I'm saying? Like the other team's not coming in thinking, yeah, man, the Seahawks run game, we got to be on that or they're going to beat us. No, they're like, we got to get to Geno and make sure he don't throw it to DK, right? Like that's their plan, you know, and that's how they scheme it. You can see that on film too. They ain't afraid of Seattle's run game. And it just, to have the pieces that you have, for that to be the case, and to have the coach that you have passing around hats that say run the damn ball. Yeah, man, that is awful. And that's been the last couple seasons, man, when they don't have the identity that he wants. And that's, if there's a few reasons why I feel like, all right, let's get Pete out of here. I'm with you. I can understand what you're saying. For me, that is probably the strongest sticking point, is that there is a philosophy and it is not being executed and implemented and carried out. It's one thing if I disagreed with the philosophy. It's not even here nor there. It's the point that there is one. We don't feel it. That's it. That's almost even worse. It's like if you just had a plan that I just didn't like, then you're the Falcons. You know what I'm saying? You're Arthur Smith. Go. But the Seahawks, they have a plan that I actually agree with, and they don't even execute it. That is what's really, 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 really concerning about these last couple of years.
This next one comes from Eric Wall. How long do you think this can go on until someone can justify calling the lack of playoff success systemic?
Oh, it already is. I think next year will probably be the threshold. That'll be my guess. 15 years. If you don't get no improvement, I could see that. I could see that being what happens from the ownership standpoint. I could easily see that. But for me, I already know it's systemic because I'm watching. I'm listening to the guys. I'm hearing what's wrong. It's identity. I remember, I don't know if I said this on the pod before. I remember this was after, I can't remember what game it was, but it was during the 4-game little losing streak there in the middle of this season. I remember somebody on offense telling me, yeah, I think I did say this on the pod. He was like, Mike, honestly, bro, sometimes it doesn't feel like we have a plan. Like, yeah. And yeah, I can say this was an offensive player that said that. And it was just like, yeah, I told him, I said, it don't look like you have one. I said, it don't. Like one day you guys run the ball, or a couple drives you'll run it, then you'll stop. You know, you go right back to it the next week, and then you'll stop. And then you're good on third down, and then you're not. And then you're good on third down, and then you're not. It's like, yeah, it doesn't feel like there's a good plan. I feel like there's like ideas, but it doesn't feel like a full-on, well-thought-out plan that guys can believe in, right? So, yeah, it's just I don't even remember the question, but yeah, that's really what I feel like has been most troubling on offense, man. It's just pretty bad to watch.
This next one comes from Golf Floco. If tight ends walk, Will Dissly, Noah Fant, Kobe, what does a fullback look like in the Seattle offense?
Ooh, I like this question. Yeah, man, I really think that if there's an offense to try to mimic, there's a couple styles that I like. I like that this question came after the other one. If you want to fill Pete Carroll ball, I wouldn't be opposed to like going 21 personnel. Like I feel like the Dolphins and the Niners are really good examples of this because when the Ravens go heavy personnel, they kind of have that label as a heavy team, whereas people think of the Dolphins as a finesse team, right? However, the Dolphins run as much 21 personnel. That's with a fullback on the field. They run as much 21 personnel as anyone in the league. I think it's them and the Niners are the top 2 in 21 personnel, right? Yeah, and the Niners are kind of got a little bit more of like a downhill smash mouth label, but the Dolphins don't. But they run the ball really well. The Dolphins are one of the best, if not the most efficient run games in the league with Alec Ingold out there. I think Ingold was a Pro Bowler too. And you guys know what Juszczyk and San Fran does. So yeah, I would be very in favor of that. I've been in favor of that for a little bit because, again, even if we disagree with like, oh, Pete run the ball too much, he old. I'm not even really there to that point. I'm just saying if that's gonna be your bag, have that be your bag then, because that's not it's not right now. The plan is okay. If Pete Carroll's like, we're gonna run the ball, play good defense, special teams, complete the circle of toughness. Cool. That's fine. That works. The Niners are doing it now. They are every year. So are the Ravens, right? It's fine. But you're not executing that plan. And I do feel like that making these guys have to play blocks in a different way with a fullback, I think should 100% be in the plan. It's hard to find fullbacks because college doesn't really produce them right now either. So you have to convert someone. But either way, convert them then. We convert dudes to the other side of the ball all the time in football. We're like, yo, hey, man, you can't catch. You want to play corner? Sure. You know what I'm saying? If you can do that, then you could probably teach a guy to lead block, right? So, yeah, I think that for sure be in the plans. And I think that would be a better way to execute what Pete Carroll wants to be on offense.
We got one from Mike at Coffee Dad 11. What should the offensive identity be in 2024?
So if you ask me my preferred style, I think they should be a run to set up the pass team, or a pass to set up the run team like that. The threat of their run game, of their pass game is so great that they get all these light boxes and then use that as their changeup, right? So because they have the weaponry. If you bring back Jackson, Tyler, and DK and whichever tight end. I feel like if you got the three, Colby, Noah, Will, as long as you just bring back one of them, you're all right in my book. So you got them. You got your two running backs. Probably draft another one as well late. Don't do it early again. You got your 11 personnel thing, right? And you can still run the ball out of that, but you can run it as like a changeup. And I think that's okay. I think that is okay. So you kind of establish the pass, and then when they start playing off of you, they're playing quarters, they're playing cover six. All right, cool. Let's run it at them. Make their linebackers have to be men and come down and tackle, right? And make their DTs have to two gap like real grown men. Make them have to do it. Right now they're not doing that. Right now the teams are just able to double DK, and then maybe a one-on-one on the other side of the field, right? And then maybe the run is established or not. So, yeah, I think that would be my preferred one, but I don't think that'll ever be the case under Pete. So I think you need to lean into the heavier stuff, which is cool too. But if you ask me, make me the OC, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna be an 11 personnel team. That's gonna be our bag. You can run it out of 11 personnel, by the way. The Rams do that too. That's another example. So you can do that. You can be a good run team. But I like the idea of like kind of being like the Bengals or like the Bills, where like, all right, they're so scared of our passing game exploding on them that now we got these light boxes. Let's run it right out. I like that plan.
This next one is from Jerome J. Lyons. The Seahawks have the worst or second worst average time of possession since 2021. He tags a link within that. How big of an issue do you think this is? Do you think it's more of an offensive or defensive issue? And how do you fix it?
It's both. That's what happens when you can't run it or stop the run. But I'm not a big time of possession guy. I feel like there's other important stats to illustrate the same point. Third down is the big one. If you're bad on third down defensively and bad on third down offensively, the other team will have the ball. So, because think about it, right? Like you can't just go in and be like, all right, guys, let's win the time of possession. What does that mean? That it's easier to go in and be like, let's be good on third down. Because that, you know what I'm saying, we can't practice time of possession necessarily. But what that usually means is converting on third down usually to move the chains, get the ball, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, I'm really worried about Seattle's offense in particular in that regard. I feel like on the defense, it's really just fix your pass rush. You'll be better. Pass rush was just not there. Even though they had the raw sack numbers and even like the sack rate numbers, you just didn't feel it. Same thing on offense. But for me, I'm really concerned about the offense because I feel like the defensive numbers and the product is bad enough that you can't really watch that with rose-colored glasses. You know what I'm saying? You can't watch that and view it as glass half full. It's just the numbers are too bad, and the product is too bad. Whereas on offense, you can trick yourself into thinking the offense is fine because, oh, look at this. We got this efficiency. We got that. No, Seattle's offense is basically this, and it has been for the last couple of seasons, including seasons with Russ. It's been score touchdowns from outside the red zone on first and second down. That is unsustainable, wildly unsustainable. Now, a couple of those Russ years, they were good in the red zone, but like these last couple of Geno years, it's been score touchdowns on first and second down from outside of the red zone. That'll get your butt whooped easily because then when you get in the red zone, that means you're not converting. And then when you're on third down, you're not converting. You're just relying on early down explosives. And as we've seen, that's awful. How many times y'all watched the Seahawks game? It feels like the first half went by, y'all had the ball twice. You come back in the second half, end up losing close. Pete Carroll gets up there and he says, yeah, we just didn't have enough turns. You know, we had the ball enough in the first half. You know, you guys have heard that a million times. Third down. So yes, time of possession factors into that. But for me, I just feel like you address your third downs, you inherently will fix that. So yeah, that's the big thing. I'm really worried about the offense in that sense. You can't rely on scoring from outside the red zone, you know, on the first and second down. That's just terrible.
Larry Collins asks, did Witherspoon prove he was the better choice at number 5, or should the Seahawks have gone with Jalen Carter given the issues with the run defense?
That's a good question. No, because I think ultimately their run defense. Jalen wasn't any better than Jaron Reed or Leonard Williams, right? So Now, granted, they would have had all three of those guys, but I don't think that they would have traded for Leonard if they had Jalen. Right? So maybe it would have just been Jay Reed and Jalen. Anyway, Spoon, I think, is just a good player, if not a better player. He's fine there. He was a good use of the pick. Wasn't a super fan of it at the time. They made a strength stronger, so it was like whatever. That's fine. You can do that. But no, I don't think I look back and be like, yeah, let's get Jalen Carter. Because instead of Spoon, because Spoon, man, I don't know about y'all. Watching Spoon was fun.
Yeah, he brings
Spoon is
energy. He
like
brings
that.
something different.
He's like that for real. They need like 9 more Spoons. Not even just from a talent standpoint, just like you said, just that attitude and that energy standpoint. So no, I'm cool with the pick. I think Philly's cool with their pick too, right? Like neither team could go wrong. I think in that sense. But if you look in the big picture, both of their defenses stink. So it just goes to show you it's just not just one good player on the other side of the ball. Spoon plays 2 spots for the Seahawks and plays them both well, and he's a Pro Bowler, and their defense is bad. Jalen Carter's a really, 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 really good defensive tackle, and their defense is really, 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 really bad. So it's kind of negligible, but yeah, I think both teams are happy with their pick, as they should be. I think Spoon was a fine pick at 5.
Ryan Turner at turn 44 jumps in. Let's grade out the rookie class. What grade can we give this class who just graduated from rookies to 1-year vets?
Let's see. Let's go down the line. Remind me of the
So you
rookie
got
real quick.
Devin, Jackson.
Okay,
Derek
yeah. Spoon's an A. Spoon's a hit. Like Spoon's really good. Great. Jackson was like a B. Solid. He's solid. Really good on third down. Which is crazy because they were bad on third down, and he was good.
Derek Hall.
Yeah, he's like a D. It just didn't. It
You're
just
being
didn't. It
generous.
didn't pop. Yeah,
You're being generous. You might have to give him an F, Mike. Come on, man.
No,
Say it with your chest.
Because he wasn't just like unplayable or nothing. Because we've seen
The
that
impact.
from.
But I hear you.
You're right. That's fine. It could be lower, but here's my point of reference for that. I would say like LJ's first season was like an F. Like that's my
Couldn't
point
even
of
play
reference.
him in the tub.
Or like Rashad Penny's first season. Where it just was like he was a healthy scratch a few times, if you remember that year, in favor of Mike Davis, right? Like when you were unplayable, then it is like failure off rip. So that's what because there was parts in the season where I was like, oh, they should probably be playing D Hall more. They shouldn't have. I was wrong, but at least I felt it. I never felt it with some of their other guys. They've had some other picks that were just complete whiffs. Right off rip too. Like Mike Tyson was one. There was some. We can go down the line, but yeah, that's my point of reference for an F. Like
fair.
Eskridge's first season, same thing, right? So yeah, I think D. I'll go D. That feels fair. What else we got?
Zach Charbonnet, Anthony Bradford.
Yeah, I think I give them both C's. They're playable, but Zach totally not his fault. Zach's is more based on production. I mean, excuse me, it's more based on just like he didn't get the ops, that he should have. Because I feel like he's a really good downhill runner when it has to be needed. I feel like he did what they brought him in here for, to go downhill and to be the change of pace, and he just didn't get the ops. They just weren't blocking, they weren't calling the plays. So Bradford was fun. I thought he was a decent run blocker, really strong. And then sometimes I just felt like, the pass pro needs to develop. Or it felt like that's why he was available when he was available in the draft.
So we have Cameron Young, Mike Morris, and Olu Oluwatimi.
Mike Morris didn't really play, so incomplete. Same thing with Kenny McIntosh. Neither one of them played. Jarek Reed blew his ACL. Olu didn't really play at all. Is great, whatever. Who else we miss?
Cameron Young.
Oh, Cameron Young has D. Playable, but they had a decent. It was okay. It was an okay class. Not as good as last year's class. Not as productive, at least. Not nearly.
This one comes from Rosie. She wants to know what our off season is going to look like.
Who? Ours? Like meaning you personally?
Yep.
I'll keep mine short. I'm going on a vacation to the DR here in a little bit. I'm gonna take some paternity leave to spend some time with my daughter. Probably do that pretty here in the next couple of weeks. Actually, probably take like a month off, and then after the draft, I'll take some more time off to get married in June and take some more paternity leave. So I'm gonna take some leave. I'm gonna take some days off, baby. Be a dad, girl dad. Yeah, that'll be most. And then I'll work on this project that I'm working on that I will tell you guys more about. I probably won't be able to tell you guys until like the summer, maybe, but I'll be working on that as well.
So yeah, I got NBA games and weddings and bachelor parties. That's what I got for the off season. So I'm excited. It'll be fun. And then
Yeah.
And then this last one comes from Rock Paper Cloud. Can you bring yourselves to root for the Huskies tomorrow?
Oh, that's a fun question to end it. No. And I'll speak just for me. I don't root for or against the Huskies when they're not playing us. Like, I just don't care. I'm largely indifferent. But I don't really bet much in the NFL, but I will bet on college. I do not have any money on this game. So, but I say that to say that trumps any allegiance that I have to, or any hate that I have for any school. Like, if I got money on the game, then go whoever would, like, if I decide to put some money on UW, I do think they're gonna win. If I decide to put some money on them, then it's go Dogs. Now, if I decide to put some money on the who's the other team? Michigan. Sorry. Yes, then it's go blue. Right. My loyalty is there. That is the priority number one. Priority number one. Diapers are expensive. So that's it. But otherwise, I'm just indifferent. I just want a good game. College football games are forever. They take like 4 hours. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it don't make sense.
Yeah, so I'd be dead. Like the last couple college football, I feel like these last few years of the semifinals and national championships, they sucked, bro. It was just 3.5 hours of watching Georgia or Bama beat the snot out of somebody. I don't want to see that. I just want a good game like we got in these semis. So no, I will never root for the Huskies. Granted, I don't really root for any other college team unless I got money on the game. So no, I will not be rooting for them unless I decide to put money on them, which I doubt it because you can't gamble on the Huskies in the state of Washington. So unless I do it before I leave Arizona, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah, I'm hoping they lose so bad tomorrow.
Do you?
Oh, yes, because the station that I work at is full of Huskies, and they're just insufferable. Softy being one of them. Our boss, Purple Sheet. Oh, Chris, how are you doing? What do you mean, how am I doing? You guys are going to the national championship, and the Cougs stinking up the joint yet again. So I'm really fingers crossed that Michigan just plays a fabulous game, and they are victorious, and then I can go on the air on Tuesday and laugh and be like, ha, y'all thought you was about to go undefeated? All those close games came back to bite you. But I could be wrong, Mike, and then I could be eating my words come standout plays of the week. So, but to be honest, yeah, I'm definitely not rooting for the Huskies. And it's not even the Pac-12 no more. Like, they are part of the reason why the Pac-12 is no longer. So, to hell with them.
All that is fair. I'm not even... I don't really hate anybody in college football. I hate like individual players or coaches or something, but never really just the whole team just because. So, for that reason, I will not bet on the Huskies then tomorrow. There you go.
Well, there you have it. Just to let you guys know, we do see all the love within the Twitter questions. I know I used to read those off, but for time purposes, I can just at the end say thank you guys for listening, subscribing, doing all of that, showing us love on the show. We appreciate it. And we see it. So don't think that, oh, Chris never reads the second part of my question, which is saying blah, blah, blah. You guys are doing X, Y, and Z because we do see it and we appreciate it. So don't feel like it's gone unnoticed. I just wanted to make that PSA. And thank you guys again for another fabulous season of Seahawks Man to Man. We got a lot planned for you in the offseason outside of Mike, taking some time off because well-deserved. He's been writing his butt off for the last, feels like 10 months. But we're definitely going to take some time off, but we're definitely going to have hopefully some really exciting guests that you guys are excited to chat and see what they got to say about the season and much more. So thank you guys again. Mike, is there anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Yes. As always, I'm going to express my appreciation. There's always time for that. Love you guys so much. Thank you for rocking all season. We're not going anywhere. I know I said I'm going to take all this time off and stuff. We're still going to have a pod. I'm going to try to line up some guests. I was working on that in the locker room today. Fingers crossed. So working on it. But thank you though. YouTube, Spotify, Blue Wire, Apple, even when you were listening on The Athletic, y'all. We appreciate all that love. Thank you so much. We're not going nowhere. Keep tapped in. It's going to be a fun off season. We got a lot to talk about and argue about and be wrong about and be right about. So we're going to have all our draft people on too. That ain't going nowhere either. So that's going to be fun. I'm making my phone calls to get my people on here. So thank you for all that love and support. Thank you for rocking all regular season. We'll catch you guys next time.
I lied. One last thing. Shout out to the folks over at Reddit, because you type in Seahawks Man to Man on Reddit, it's blessings. It's good things. So
it goes crazy over there. Nice. I don't got Reddit, but that's cool.
I just happened to type in. Let me see what Reddit thinks. And so Reddit out there, users on Reddit, we appreciate you sharing the pod with other users, and that's love. We appreciate it. We'll come to you guys later in the week, and you guys have a safe one.